In 2025, something started happening in the most godless zip code in America. The billionaires, the venture capitalists, the people who built the algorithms that run your life. They started showing up to church. Not quietly, not privately, publicly. That's the richest man on the planet. Telling Jordan Peterson on camera that the teachings of Jesus are good and wise. And he's not even the wildest story in this video. I'm about to show you six people who had everything the world says should make you happy. And every single one of them arrived at the same conclusion. And I'm saving the most intense one for last. Let's get into it. Here's what you need to understand. Silicon Valley wasn't just non-religious, it was anti-religious. For decades, faith was something you kept to yourself, if you had it at all. Talking about Jesus in a boardroom in San Francisco was career suicide. One pastor there described it as borderline illegal. These are the people who built the technology that changed the world. The processors in your phone, the algorithms in your feed, the AI that's reshaping every industry on Earth. They mastered everything science and money could offer. And then something broke. The people who tried the mushrooms, the ayahuasca, the silent retreats, the biohacking, they started walking into churches instead. And what's happening there right now isn't a fad. It's not a PR stunt. It's a full-blown revival. And I've got the receipts. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with one friend who needs to hear it. It takes 2 seconds and it helps more than you know. Moment number 1. Elon Musk, the richest man alive. Let's start with the obvious one, Elon Musk. The man runs Tesla, SpaceX, and X. Net worth that fluctuates between $200 and $400 billion depending on the day. A few years ago, he told Rainn Wilson he didn't believe in a super consciousness watching over us. Standard Silicon Valley stuff. But then, in July 2024, he sat down with Jordan Peterson and said something nobody expected.
Well, so Dawkins just came out 3 weeks ago or thereabouts and announced that he was a cultural Christian, right? And so the question...
Right, I would say I'm probably a cultural Christian.
Okay, so...
I was brought up as an Anglican and I was baptized. And although, oddly enough, my parents also simultaneously sent me to a Jewish nursery school, preschool.
He called himself a cultural Christian. He said the teachings of Christ lead to the greatest happiness for humanity. And then he went further. He said he used to think turning the other cheek was weak and foolish, but that he was the fool for not seeing its wisdom. And it didn't stop there. By October 2025, he was reposting messages on X telling people to go to church. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Elon Musk is a born-again believer. He hasn't claimed that. But the world's richest man publicly defending the teachings of Jesus? Telling 400 million followers to go to church. The culture can handle spiritual curiosity. It panics when the man who runs the internet starts quoting Christ. And he's just the beginning. Moment number 2. Garry Tan, the gatekeeper. If you don't know the name Garry Tan, you should. He's the CEO of Combinator, the startup accelerator behind Airbnb, Coinbase, Instacart, Dropbox. Companies worth a combined $226 billion. He's a Stanford computer science grad. He was an early employee at Palantir. He is one of the most powerful gatekeepers in all of tech. And in 2023, he posted this on X. After college, I found Jesus and became Christian. It's interesting to revisit the agnostic and atheist in me. I was all rage in high school. It's still deeply embedded in me, but I know how to harness it better now. And he didn't just post about it. He started hosting faith events. In San Francisco's Mission District, in a converted church-turned-townhouse, Tan hosted a gathering called Code and Cosmos, a night of worship, prayer, and conversation about God. In San Francisco, he even acknowledged it himself. There was probably a time where a gathering like this would be unusual and maybe a little bit reviled in San Francisco. The man who decides which startups get funded is hosting worship nights. That's not a footnote. That's a signal. Moment number 3. Pat Gelsinger, the engineer. Now this one's going to surprise you. Pat Gelsinger. If you've never heard the name, you've used his work every single day of your life. He joined Intel at 18 years old, became the youngest VP in company history, became the first CTO. He was the chief architect of the i486 processor, the chip that powered personal computing. He helped develop USB. He helped develop Wi-Fi. Then he became the CEO of Intel. In December 2024, the board pushed him out. And here's where it gets interesting. Instead of bitterness, instead of a revenge tour or a tell-all memoir, he said this. December 1 began just as a most dreadful few days for me. I was often pissed off, angry, and bitter with the board. But other times I felt God's on the throne and he has a plan. He pivoted to Glue, a technology platform for churches, and started building AI aligned with Christian values. His stated mission? To work on a piece of technology that would improve the quality of life of every human on the planet and hasten the coming of Christ's return. He called AI another Gutenberg moment, comparing it to the printing press that spread the Bible across the world. He said, Christians of that time embraced that great invention to literally change humanity. Are we going to embrace and shape AI as a technology that truly becomes a powerful expression of the church? The man who architected the processor inside your computer isn't building the next chip. He's building AI to spread the gospel. That's not a career pivot, that's a calling. Moment number 4, the Silicon Valley Revival, the movement. But here's the thing, these aren't isolated incidents, this is a movement. In September 2025, Peter Thiel, the billionaire co-founder of PayPal and Palantir, one of the most powerful men in Silicon Valley, gave a sold-out 4-week lecture series at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco. The topic? The Antichrist. I'm not making that up. While devil-costumed protesters clogged the sidewalk outside, hundreds of tech elites filed in to hear a billionaire talk about biblical eschatology. Behind the scenes, a woman named Michelle Stevens, wife of a Founders Fund partner and co-founder of Anduril Industries, has been quietly organizing something called the Acts 17 Collective. That stands for Acknowledging Christ in Technology and Society. She's been hosting intimate gatherings for tech leaders featuring worship, prayer, and conversation about faith. And what she's hearing from attendees is stunning. They told her they'd tried everything: mushrooms, Molly, silent retreats, biohacking, and none of it filled the void. As she put it, as humans, we are all made to worship and will worship something if we don't worship God. The question is, what are you putting your faith in? Meanwhile, Epic Church in San Francisco grew from a hotel room in 2011 to 1,000 weekly attendees and a $12 million building. A Catholic church in Santa Clara reported 3,000 families and 50,000 confessions a year from congregants who work at Google and Apple. The pastor said, "People who may be doing well also want something more. There's a real search for the truth beyond tech." The people who tried everything the world had to offer are now saying the same thing. None of it worked. But this does. Okay, before we get to the last two, and trust me, these final 2 stories are where this video goes from interesting to absolutely unforgettable. I want to hear from you. Drop one word in the comments that describes what you think is really driving this. Is it emptiness, conviction, revival? Just one word. I want to see what you're thinking. And if you're loving what this channel is about, stories that remind you God is still moving, even in places people call too far gone, please like the video, share it, and comment something like "God bless" to help boost this in the algorithm. It makes a real difference. All right, back in. Because the next 2 are the ones I've been waiting to tell you about. Moment number 5. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the atheist who knelt. This is the one that stopped me in my tracks. Ayaan Hirsi Ali. If you know that name, you know her as one of the fiercest critics of religion on the planet. She was born in Somalia, survived female genital mutilation, fled an arranged marriage, abandoned Islam, and became one of the most prominent atheists in the world, standing shoulder to shoulder with Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Christopher Hitchens. They called her the 5th horseman of New Atheism. She had everything: a best-selling career, financial security, a loving marriage, beautiful children, and she fell into a depression so deep she checked herself into a facility. A woman there told her she was spiritually bankrupt. Ayaan was told to write down the qualities she'd want a God to have. She wrote them out and realized every single one described Jesus. And then she prayed. In her own words, "If you are there, God, if you are for real, rescue me. Take me away from this black pit in which I am." She said over the following days she felt a connection she'd never experienced before. In November 2023, she published an essay in Unheard titled, "Why I Am Now a Christian." The woman who spent decades dismantling faith, publicly declaring her belief in Christ. And then, in May 2024, she debated Richard Dawkins himself, live, on stage. Watch this.
That's why I've called you a political Christian, but from what you've just said, it sounds as though you're more than just a political Christian. I mean, it sounds as though you actually believe it.
Well, it is, again, different planes of perception. So I choose to accept Jesus Christ, the teachings of Jesus Christ, the story of Jesus Christ. I choose to accept that. So on the personal level, the rewards I get, very subjective again, but mine and through choice, which is separate from where I think that, aside from my personal experience, the history of Western civilization is mainly Christian.
Richard Dawkins, the most famous atheist alive, looking at his former ally and saying, "It sounds like you actually believe it." She later said, "Christianity is obsessed with love. The message of Christianity is a message of love. It is a message of redemption. It is a story of renewal and rebirth." She said she regrets the damage she caused to Christianity by equating it with Islam. She had the career, she had the money, she had the intellectual respect of the world's most famous atheists. She spent decades attacking faith, and the void it left nearly killed her. When she finally got on her knees and prayed, it wasn't because she ran out of arguments. It was because she ran out of hope. And Jesus met her there. Moment number 6. Russell Brand, the hedonist in the river. And now the one I've been building to, Russell Brand. If you know the name, you know the reputation. The walking embodiment of secular excess. He was famous for being famous, for the parties, the women, the substances, the chaos. He lived at the absolute peak of everything the world says should make you happy. And in 2023, he sat down with Tucker Carlson and said something that changed everything.
Like many desperate people, I need spirituality, I need God, or I cannot cope in this world. I need to believe in the best in people. I need to believe that there are new alliances possible, new ways of us communicating, because I see atrophying and corrupt systems delivering yet more misery to people, and I think it's increasingly necessary that we find new ways of framing the conversation and looking into our hearts when we're speaking.
I need God, or I cannot cope in this world. The man who had access to every pleasure, every distraction, every escape the world could manufacture. He said he didn't have enough self-discipline to resist the allure of stardom, and that he fell face first into the glitter, and was only just pulling himself out now. He started reading the Bible. He started going to church. He started talking about Jesus with a sincerity that made people uncomfortable, because it didn't sound like a brand play. It sounded like desperation. Russell Brand walked into the River Thames, and Bear Grylls baptized him.
What's been explained to me is it's an opportunity to die and be reborn, an opportunity to leave the past behind and be reborn in Christ's name, like it says in Galatians.
He posted, "This Sunday I'm taking the plunge. Baptism, an opportunity to die and be reborn, an opportunity to leave the past behind and be reborn in Christ's name." Now I know what some of you are thinking. There are allegations. There's controversy. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't exist. But here's what I will say. I'm not the judge of a man's heart. If his conversion is real, it'll bear fruit. If it's not, time will expose that too. What I can tell you is this. The words he's saying about Jesus don't sound like a PR strategy. They sound like a man who hit rock bottom and found the only thing that could pull him out. He later said, "I used to live for fame, fortune, and fornication, and I found the truth of the resurrection in my own heart." At a Tucker Carlson live event in Phoenix, he got on his knees, barefoot, and prayed against dark and demonic forces in front of thousands. The man who embodied everything the world tells you should make you happy, standing in the River Thames, drenched, weeping, saying he's been reborn. That's not a trend, that's a testimony.